Real Talk with Grace Redman features conversations with fierce and fabulous people from Grace's community and circle who inspire others with their stories of overcoming challenges to create amazing. Grace is an entrepreneur and success coach who works with individuals to diminish their negative mental chatter, boost their confidence, achieve their goals, and increase their prosperity mindset. Get ready for a series of anything goes conversations with remarkable men and women that will get you jazzed for life's unlimited possibilities of success, freedom, and fun. Welcome to Real Talk with Grace Redman.
I'm Grace Redman, and thank you for joining me on another episode of Real Talk, where I get to have real life, raw conversations with incredible people from my circles and communities who have overcome challenges and created amazing. Today, I am super excited to host one of my dear friends who is just amazing, Ed Foster. Ed Foster is a Bay Area native who received an education in New England and the Pacific Northwest. Ed has walked into several startups in the early phases and was instrumental in creating company cultures that were inviting, fun, productive, and made the lives of the whole organization much easier. Moving back to California in 2010, he discovered more about himself than he had in the previous 33 years of his life. Ed has an incredible, inspiring journey to share, and he always keeps it real and raw. Please help me welcome Ed Foster to Real Talk.
Thank you, Grace. Thank you so much for having me. This is truly an honor.
It's my honor.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And you're such an inspiration. You still continue to be.
Thank you. As
with
you
your
are.
challenges as well. I think it's one of those things where I just kind of be me. And I kind of get the feedback from folks about just kind of, my journey, my stories and how that helps them. So that's one of the things actually in high school that was very, they just drilled that in your head about being yourself, even when you don't know who you are, just do kind of what resonates within you, whether it is you're curious or whether you're comfortable knowing those boundaries, but just continue to be yourself. So
I love that. And I love how you just said, continue to be yourself, even though you might not know who that is. Now, what does that look like?
Great question.
What does that look like?
Well, I think for me personally, it's like when I started with you, actually, I credit a lot to like where I am. I know this sounds a little so serving, but I credit a lot to when you placed me when I was with Stansberry.
Thank you.
Yeah, it truly kind of kickstarted this wonderful chapter in my life where I started beginning to understand myself. Because before that, I had been in law. I worked in law for 13, many years, and I knew that it was time for me to leave law. I always say well, it's very taxing. It wears on you, and sometimes you don't know where you're headed. And I had recently, well, not recently, but then realized I needed a change in my life, and I don't know what that is because I wasn't feeling myself. And I had taken a family trip to Spain, in February of 2015. Really enjoyed it there, and there was something there that resonated. There was some sort of magical vibe in a small town, and when I came back from that trip, I realized I need to follow that. And I had no idea. I knew no one in Spain. I knew I needed something different. I didn't know what that was. I was trial paralegal before that. I was an IT guy, a file clerk. But I needed something different and more. I didn't know what that looked like. So I pretty much went to my boss and I said, okay, it's time for me to go. I don't know where, but I gotta go.
I mean, that takes so much courage to do that, just to leave, because that's what we're taught, like stability and get a job and a career and stay there. And that's what life's supposed to look like. But is it really?
Right. Yeah. And that's actually one of those, it's one of those points in my life where I really take it to heart, like having that. I mean, I can say it now, like having the courage to do that. At the time I was scared shitless. I couldn't, I like, what am I doing? Questioning my choices. But if anything, I was just following what resonated with me in my heart. Like I knew this was right. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know what else to do, what was going to happen, but I knew I was gonna come out the other side just fine. And the intention when I went to Spain was to actually move there and live there. Um, but I didn't know what to do with that. I went to a small beach town. All the jobs there were already taken for the summer months, so I couldn't find a job. I was already there, so I just enjoyed it as much as possible, and I got to know this small town, Estepona. I highly recommend it for people who want to travel, and got to know this village and the folks here, and it felt like the whole town of Estepona was like my friend.
Oh my God, I love.
Um,
Oh,
but it
how long
was time for me to leave. What's that?
how long were you in Spain?
As long as I could have. So it was only 90 days. Since I couldn't find a job, it was a tourist visa. Um, so I stayed the full 3 months, came back, and it's like, okay, I've assessed myself.
Mm.
I've always been kind of wherever I've worked, I've always been that go-to guy where you either talk to me about a problem that you're having and I help you solve it. If there's something that needs to be fixed in the office, whether it's a printer or a laptop or a sink, that was me. And that's where I ended up signing up with you to be a temp as an office manager and an EA. Just kind of, again, kind of matching the role with my character, and started off with I think that was inside sales
That was
with
I,
you.
yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And I remember that you had placed me with Amber, who was Amber Fairborn was my first manager, and that phone interview went 45 minutes. It was just talking about kind of me and where I was going, what I was going through. But the job was basically to support this office in San Mateo. They were a newly acquired company, and they're like, "Listen, just make them happy." I'm
That's
like,
it.
"Well, that's going to cost some money. There's a little bit of culture differences because they were headquartered elsewhere. New Silicon Valley startup culture with like the startup culture in Provo, Utah." So she's like, "I know you can do it." And again, it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know what this is going to look like, but it's going to work out.
And I that's what I love about you, and where you and I kind of resonate. It's like this intuitively, like you don't know the how, but because you can feel it and it resonates, and that's not easy to do. So when you have those feelings and you don't know the how, like what keeps you grounded to know that, okay, this is going to work out?
Wow, that's a great question, because sometimes I'm like, what grounds me? What can I kind of draw upon to just kind of stay this course? I will say, I think I would just acknowledge like previous experiences that have worked, that
Hmm.
didn't go the way I had planned, whether it's you know educational education or work, whatever it is, like it's gonna work itself out. And you can kind of look back on those things and say, okay, uh, you know, this is where I need to kind of draw upon the many successes from before,
Yeah.
um, and address those internally,
Hmm.
and then being able to just remind myself that on the other side of this, it's going to be great.
Yeah.
It really will. I
And
actually had, sorry,
I
go ahead.
sorry, and I like how you say it's like you draw on the experiences from the past to help you recognize, like, I can move forward in this and it's going to be okay because I had all these situations come up, successful or not, and I made it. So whatever's on the other side of this is going to be great.
And I would say, like, I focus more on the successful experiences. Obviously, you want to learn from, you don't really fail. It's only a failure if you don't learn from it,
Oh,
right?
you don't fail.
And it becomes a success. So it's those kinds of successes. And, I kind of repeat those things in my head. I remind myself to this day, just whatever it's going to look like, it's going to be successful. Whether it's a team experience here, like we had our first inaugural, um, we call it a homecoming, but we have remote workers where I work now. We have remote workers all over the nation. We had people come to our headquarters here in Santa Cruz, and I had planned, it was just 2 days of team fun, right? We did pickleball. We had a nice team dinner. Um,
Fun.
we were going to share kind of stories and experiences with each other, like successes or the things that we can improve upon. And day one, before anyone even showed up to the office, my laptop at work died. Like
Ah,
all my notes and everything that I had, it was on there, and I couldn't start it. And I was a little bit freaked out because like I just had to
totally.
roll kind of off the cuff. The restaurant for the team dinner for 30 people called and they said, "Oh, well, we have an event in Monterey. It's 5,000 people, and we're not going to be able to support your dinner." So I had to figure out, where is there another place here in Santa Cruz that can accommodate for 30 people at within a day's notice.
So what'd
um,
you do?
I circled back with our CEO, Jen Zezit, and she was just like, "Listen, I know folks here in Santa Cruz. Like she's well known within the community." She gave me a couple suggestions. We were on the phone the night before with this place called the Chaminade,
Oh, the
and
not, yeah, it's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. And so they were willing to accommodate us, and they put us kind of on a little outdoor patio off to the side from the restaurant. So we did have our own space, and it was great. We kind of did like a charcuterie board. We picked the menu. One of my team members was able to. I asked him to perform make a Goodles jingle, and so he sang it there on the balcony. We had the sun setting. It wasn't what I had planned, but this was great. And the other thing that I needed to keep in perspective too is that people don't know otherwise. Like, I'm the one who knows the plan,
True.
but they were the ones who were like, they got to enjoy it. And so for me, seeing everyone being able to just like have a great time, and it was tears of joy, good food, good wine, and it worked out. Like it was one of those things again. Like, I don't know how it's going to work out, but it will, and it turned out great.
And I mean, the Chaminade's amazing, and it's in, the mountains, so I
Yes.
imagine, like, it probably turned out better than you had anticipated, like, especially in that setting because it's so gorgeous.
Yeah, yeah, it did. I was super grateful with Jen's help just getting that location, because the weather on that day, it was perfect. And the food was phenomenal. So
Well, that's an example. I mean, something that, you really believe in. You really believe that there's truly a reason for everything that happens. And,
I
kind of going to the bigger picture, what does that mean to you, especially in those times when things happen that, because there's things that happen that are not that great, that suck.
Yeah, that's a great question as well. Like, it's one of those things where, even through the hardships, like, there the things that suck for me personally, it's like, um, I probably my worst critic. I'm my own harshest critic.
Okay.
Maybe it is a little bit of that perfectionism, but
Mhm.
how do I have to take the perspective of, it sucks for me. Got to keep moving forward with it. Um, you know, Knowing kind of the goal and the destination of what is the next step for me. That has actually been one of my biggest struggles. Is knowing is actually being my own main character.
I like
Um, yeah, I mean, that's the thing where, even with my law experience, with my IT experience, and even in my roles in startups, I've been kind of a support role. And one thing that I am still learning to this day, or overcoming, is acting like a supporting character in my story.
oh,
So I
oh,
want to be my own main character, right? And
So
what does that look like?
yeah, so tell me more about that. What is the main character in your own story? Like, what does that look like to you? What's the vision?
The vision, it's ever evolving, and I think I mean, part of this inspiration that I'm drawing off of you as well. I had started my startup career as an office manager and an EA, but what does that look like in 5 years? And one of those things is chief of staff,
Mhm.
and I had wanted that role in my last at my last company for myself. And at the same time, I just get caught up with the needs of being an office manager, supporting an office, supporting CEOs and COOs, that I get lost in that. It's like, well, what does Ed Foster want for himself?
Mhm, mhm,
And it comes down to professionally, I'm now a chief of staff. Like that is a role that I love. I hold it highly. This is my first one.
great
And
at
it feels like my forever job, quite honestly.
and you're great
Um,
at it, Ed, like, you're really great, I mean
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, this company allows me that flexibility to support a team, to be creative with some marketing efforts. I've been involved with some TikToks and TikTok challenges, but and supporting our CEO. But at the same time, I get to do it my way. It's one thing that I need to remind myself of is being able to know that I have a role here. I have a seat at the table. I think I've mentioned that to you before.
mhm,
Um, I've always kind of stood in the background, but here I'm sitting at the table. And so professionally, like
mhm.
that's one of the things. Like, what does my own main character look like? It's having a seat at the table professionally as a chief of staff. Um, and personally, it's like I've always wanted to be a traveler. And if I'd love to see lots of different cultures. That's always added kind of flavor to my life and my stories. But from my travels, I've had this story in my head. Um, just a children's book that I think I've told you about
Yeah,
before. That being an author, and I think that's one of the things where uh, that's one of my main thing. One of my I guess objectives
mhm,
for myself. Like, I want to be an author.
and you
And
can be.
the thing is, I've had a story. I've had like chapters written. I have not published it. And so, with with your announcement earlier in our podcast, it's like, you know what? This is a sign. This is
Yeah.
what this is telling me.
Yes, so the synchronicities, which brings me to, there's a greater source. So right there, I typically don't share those things right before we come on the podcast. I kind of save it for its own announcement, but I felt, guided to do that today. So now I understand why. So it's those small synchronicities and those messages from the universe. So there you go. I'm so excited that that came through for you.
I mean, that's the thing, is like these small little moments that may seem like small little moments, they really do amount to
They do.
so much more, right? When someone listens to something, you just don't know, like a conversation on BART or with
Mhm.
coworkers, or just watching something on TV, connecting with a good friend and being on their podcast.
Yeah.
It's taking those signs to heart, but then doing something with it too. And
Yeah.
that's the thing. So for me, it's like, okay, the universe is telling me something. I need to act on it,
Yeah.
and I really start to see these things as calls to action.
Mm.
Whereas I think in my younger versions of myself, they'd be like, "Oh, these are great stories," or that's great that you're publishing a book, um, and then I would leave it at that. Where
Mhm.
it's like, no, wait, I want a book. I have chapters that I've written. I can hone in on what this story is going to look like and illustrate it. It's a children's book, maybe a young adult, but it's taking those steps and having just the small little sparks of action that I think for me personally, I've needed that constantly. It's kind of a battle.
You mean to take action, like the motivation to take, or the
The
inspiration to take?
motivation to the inspiration and taking the inspiration
Mhm,
to motivate you to
mhm,
do something with it, because
mhm.
we're all here for a reason. We all have something to contribute, whether
Yes,
we do it or not. We do have that. It's there. It's just
absolutely.
acknowledging it and saying, you know what, there is room for me here on this, in this world, and I think that gets lost on some
Yes,
folks. It did on me for a very
for
long time.
sure. I mean,
Yeah.
it gets lost in a, I know it got lost on me, while I was raising the kids, and they're small, and I have the business, and the Mike's traveling, and I have a million things. Like you get lost in the race,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
you might not even hear those messages, coming, because it's like you're so steeped in your doing, and and actually
Absolutely.
not really even inspired. It's just I got to do this.
Right. And it becomes one of those things where it's like, I hear, meditation's a great practice to do, or journaling is great to do, and I hear these things, but it's like, no, like, there's a reason for that. And so you
That's
got to
right.
take that time. Something I do in the mornings is I listen to a meditation that reemphasizes, accepting my path, but and loving myself, which is great. But there's also something that I lose sight of, is just respecting yourself. Like, you have a place here,
Yes.
and that always kind of kickstarts. I do pay attention to the days that maybe I'll skip it. Maybe I wake up through my alarm, and then, like, my day just starts off kind of like not the way I had planned. So then I skip the meditation, and then you kind of see it's like, oh, that's why, it's like, just take some time to do that
Totally.
and remind yourself,
Oh, totally. I mean, now it's like it's rare I skip, because I notice, like, if I skip, I'm like, okay, like I'm not as grounded. Like I feel like I'm
Yeah.
spinning, and then like,
Right.
all right, like I need to go, even if I just have to go in the ladies' room and just take a breather, if I'm out and about, because I know like I didn't take that time to get grounded. And I think I've told this story before, but I've always had a business coach. So, 25 years ago when I had my first business coach, and or less than 25 years ago, whatever, 20, because Raymond's 22, he was like, "You really need to take 20 minutes to meditate." I was like, "Dude, fuck you. I don't take no 20 minutes to meditate." But
Right. When you're in the hustle and bustle, you're not even 20 minutes. Wait a minute. I'm using that time to, like,
you know what
kind
I'm
of eat, maybe.
saying, right? And
Yeah.
now I'm like, "Oh, well, I was the one that was fuck you." Like, I wasn't ready to hear it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But had I taken those 20 minutes, I would have really helped myself, because when we take that time, we really create more space in the day.
Right. Right. But like you said, you weren't ready. Like,
No.
I love that, because those are the things where that perfectionist or that ego inside me just
Oh,
kind of looks at those things, and it's like, oh, if I had only just known this sooner. And I think that kind of comes from my upbringing, and maybe it's a culture thing, but it's also, I've come to the point now where it's like, I just wasn't ready. Like,
no.
that I wasn't ready to hear it at that time. I look on relationships, past relationships, and I'm friends with some of my exes, and it's to the point where it's like, wow, this could have gone really well if, right? But it's like, but I was a different person back then.
Right. Oh, relationships are tough, because we come into the relationship with all our trauma baggage,
Yes.
and then our
Yeah.
traumas hit up against each other, right?
Right.
And
And
we
that's
match our traumas, and we think, "Oh my god, this is so exciting," but what we don't realize, and it can be exciting, I'm not saying that. It's just the trauma is just like, "Wow, here we go." But we gotta heal ourselves, right?
right. I mean, that's kind of been my stance. My parents, my family, they would love to have grandkids and me in a long-standing marriage. But what I had, what I keep on reminding them about is, I wasn't the person that I wasn't ready for that at that time. And now it's, for me, it's like, okay, let's assess, like, who I am and what I'm ready for. Um, and it's a challenge for them, because they want something different for me, and I've had
Mm,
such a big upbringing with kind of those goals, and even I want them myself, but at the same
right.
time, it's like, in order for me to be in a successful, long-standing relationship, like I am learning to love myself and accept myself
Yes.
and right and respect myself, but I also want that in my partner. And
Mhm.
so um, I told them when it happens, it'll be the most beautiful day.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
and you you don't want to, and I get this too. It's like you don't want to feel rushed and be put in a situation where it's just you feel like you have to,
Yes.
or it's obligated. And obligation, I mean, from a Filipino, a Catholic upbringing, like there's a lot of like duty, you know, which is noble. At the same time, it's like when you want to focus on yourself and you know, achieving your own masterpiece, maybe you're not using the same tools or you have the same path as anyone else, and so and that's okay. but
Yes.
but it's it can be
Well,
it can be a challenge.
tell me about it. I mean, I come from a Palestinian, Christian background, and we also have like this nobility and the way it's supposed to go. And you're supposed to
Yep.
get, as a woman, you're supposed to get married, when you're like 18, 19, 20. And then if not, then you're an old maid. And the person you marry has to be from the same culture, who comes from like a well-to-do family, and they have to be this. And I was fucked. Like, I was like, I was
You're like, wait
24.
a minute.
Although I met an amazing, guy, and he's my best friend, but it's like they put these things in your head, and
Yeah.
but there's no right or wrong. It's like we could do life, marriage, relationships in very different ways. And I think I love how you're talking about this. And I tell my boys this: there's not just one way. It doesn't have to be a white picket fence for you to be happy.
Right, right. Yeah, and uh I on top of that, I think I kind of focus on like my god kids, like
Mm.
call my nephews and my niece. But they're I mean, one is about to head into college, one just got into high school. But one of the questions that I never or I don't recall ever hearing from my folks is, what do you want for yourself? What
Mm,
do you see for yourself? And it's not like, do you want to be a doctor, or I can't wait till you're a lawyer. It's like, what is your passion? What do you want for yourself? And I think
nice.
that's something that, you know, folks like us, like we can pass that on, right? In
Yes,
terms of you are the creator, you are, you know,
yes.
the master of your destiny. So
Absolutely, absolutely. And I have passed that to my boys because they were afraid to tell me, like, I don't want to do college right now. And I said, okay, explore, live, work, see. I mean, college is going to stay there. You're still young. That's not the only path. Go and I don't know what, find yourself, but explore, have experiences, travel,
absolutely.
do all those things, because you have your whole life. Feel like
Yeah.
we start working when we're 22. We're going to work for the rest of our lives.
Right. And
Where's
then
the
you kind of get
experience?
stuck in the rat race, if you
That's
will.
right.
But there is a benefit to that gap year, because if you're knowingly taking like some time away to figure out what you want to do, you're going to make those years, your higher education, more fruitful,
Yes,
something that benefits you. And then
absolutely.
you at an early, I'll say early, but you know, 20s, you know, you could you're learning like, okay, there is a reason to kind of take a step back, and it's okay.
Yes,
Those
yes.
are like, it's okay is such an important phrase.
It's
Um,
okay, and there's no we could do this and that. We could take a gap year and go to college.
right.
We can focus on a career and have a family. We can be single and be happy.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like it doesn't have to be this one way, but also, society conditioned us that way for a reason. Like, we needed, that conditioning for a reason, but now there's different ways to do things. And just bringing light to that. Like, it's not wrong if you wanna do things a different way.
Absolutely. And those are, that's why, like, you know, these types of podcasts, or you know, just conversations are so important. And
Yes.
I think they're probably had with friends, but sometimes you want to hear that with like family or close ones or loved ones, where it's okay, we're gonna get through this, right?
Absolutely, but I also find that a lot of us, we don't, like, I had a girlfriend. I mean, of course, I'm ready, I'm open. I have girlfriends I'm vulnerable with, and, I'm pretty open, but I had one girlfriend say, "You know what, Grace, like, why don't we talk about these things in our group? Like, I thought I was alone. Like, how come we don't talk about these things?" And I said, "Well, because it's hard for people to be vulnerable. It's hard for people to share because we were taught to wear a mask and everything's okay. It's fine. But in reality, like, yes, we could be fine and we're going navigating these. There's nothing wrong. This is life. We're going to have challenges. Like, talk
Mhm.
about it, like, let it out.
Mhm.
It's okay. No one's life is
Right.
perfect. We could have fabulous and challenges. It's a contrast. There's always going to be a contrast.
The irony of like having a podcast, or the irony of having like social media, is people are portraying what are they called, like uh, sometimes like who you present yourself as in social media is not who you are, right? Which
True.
is why having something like real talk, like have a real talk with yourself. But
Yeah,
it's the irony is it's easier to do that in front of a screen, right? Because then, this podcast will be over, or I can walk away from the laptop, but you still are yourself. So I think sharing in person, it presents a challenge, and it's somewhat old school, but
yeah,
it's needed.
it
It's
is.
definitely needed.
It is. And that's why I like to, bring light to these things. Of course, we have to be discerning. You get to be discerning, and you get to have your privacy. Just, like, it's okay. Like, we all go through things, and it's okay to share. It doesn't make us less than. It doesn't, I
Right,
our challenges are not, tied to our identity. It's just something that we're going through.
right. And having that mindset of your identity is fluid, you'll have like your core you,
Yes.
but in terms of your role in life, your stage in life, that is all that it's okay that those things are fluid.
Yes.
And you just gotta stay true. I mean, I know it's cliche, but when you understand who you are as you go and enter any room or anywhere in life, right? Then you have that confidence, right?
Yes.
To know, like, to adapt, to be flexible, or to assert kind of your vision and your dreams.
Right,
So
right. And I know, like, that phrase, like, said, "Be true to who you are." Sometimes, like, you don't even know who you are, like, you're not really sure what to be true to because, like, we've been conditioned. Um, and so, like, how do you be true? I guess, you know, doing what you want for yourself. You think that be something that be true to yourself, like being true?
that is, yeah. And I wish I had you in my ear when I was a teenager, or that,
I had
having that
when I was a teenager.
that advice is so great, because that's something where you kind of, if you don't know, you kind of rely on the
Mhm.
not the outliers, but outside influences, right? If you can kind of take a step back and understand kind of what the values that resonate within you are, what your own kind of vision is, like, whether it's even a fog, right? Just know that if you can take a step forward and not have to, you're not harming anyone. You're doing something that's contributing, and you have a part in that. That's something where, even when you can navigate through any fog with that.
Yes, absolutely. And like you said, when you have that confidence, when you know who you are, and something you talk about is, how knowing your worth can really make you so successful.
Right. It's looking back on those little wins, whether it's signing up with Stansberry, whether it's having the courage of saying this role isn't right for me now, but
Mhm.
I'm going to move to a different company, right? Or just having those, like, looking back on those things and keeping that in your pocket will
Mhm.
give you that confidence. I mean, you can at least just stand, put your 2 feet on the ground, be flat-footed, stop, take a deep breath, and just count to three.
Yes.
And sometimes the answer reveals itself.
Oh my goodness, it really does when we get quiet with ourselves.
Yes,
So something like I want to talk about, because we all have that negative chatter in our mind. It is what it is, and we have a choice to be the observer or the absorber of that negative chatter. What do you say
I
to that?
love that.
So what do you say to that negative chatter when it comes up in your mind?
God, I honestly, I harken back to like books that I've read, that I've listened to. When I hearken back to those things where it's like the previous, like hearing other people's stories, like books that I would talk about is like Jen Sincero's You're a Badass.
Love that one.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes like I just need that voice to remind me that there is something special about you. You
Mm.
you can do it even if you don't have the confidence. I think she's even talked about faking it to making it, but
Yeah.
just stand there and be present in the room. You might not know what direction to take, but just stand there and just stand your ground. And it's
Yes.
okay. Take a
Yes.
breath, you know, and you'll figure out which direction you want to go in when the time is right, when the
Yeah.
situation kind of presents itself in the room. And that's something that I kind of take to heart with myself, whether it's meeting an investor, not knowing anyone, but knowing that I have mac and cheese, like,
Mhm.
Goodles mac and cheese. Like, I just hold on to that and just know I'm the chief of staff here. I represent the company. Um, I might not know what kind of partnerships you have to offer, but I know where we stand, and let's hear it. And that's where you kind of stop and listen.
And
And
that's
you kind of adjust.
and that's the
Yeah.
confidence you're talking about because you believe in you and what you're doing, which brings us, let's talk about Goodle.
Thank you for that reminder and the confidence. Yeah, I mean, I can't. I think I said earlier, this is like my forever job. Like, chief of staff of a mac and cheese company. I was in my previous role. I felt like I was hitting the ceiling there. I didn't know what was next, and I wanted more. I knew that there was more to my life than just being kind of the office manager EA role, executive admin. So I ended up I just looked up at the universe on a Saturday. I said it out loud, and I said, "All right, let me be prepared to accept whatever's next, whatever that is." And I didn't see this happening. That was on a Saturday. On Monday, I checked my email before I log into our all hands meeting. This was during the pandemic. And my current boss, she sends me an email. She's like, "What are you doing? Can we hire you?" I literally, like, I rolled back in I was like, "I'm paying attention." And I told, my response was, "Fuck yeah, we should. Let's have a chat." And so, she was telling me about this healthy mac and cheese company. It's packed with protein, it's packed with fiber. But there's also this Hollywood element to it. She's been the CEO of three other different brands. And the whole point is to give really good food that that's nutritious, but also it inspires joy. Like, that is our main goal, right?
Well, that's mac and cheese. It's comforting. I love mac and cheese.
It's comfort food, and you know what? All the stuff that's out there has zero nutritional value, but we have protein, we have fiber, we have prebiotics, we have 21 nutrients from vegetables.
Mm,
But if you have it, it doesn't taste like it. It tastes
so
better than that warm bowl that you had as a kid, that nice little hug that you had on a Saturday morning watching cartoons. Um, so you throw that in there, this great product, and then we also have someone who's from Kraft. Paul Earl's one of our founders. He worked for Kraft. Deb Luster's our chief impact officer. She came from Annie. She actually founded Annie's Mac and Cheese with Annie and Andrew.
amazing.
So we have the mac and cheese pedigree, but the kicker is this Hollywood element. Gal Gadot, who plays Wonder Woman, she's, I think, like the 37th most followed person in the
Wow.
world. She's also one of our founding partners. And so Jen comes to me with this proposition. Is like, "Wait, what am I doing? I'm a chief of wait, what?"
Isn't that
Um,
in the
it, it,
universe? It's like you had that thought. And well, I mean, it was all these steps to that moment.
right. Exactly. And that's where I kind of knew, like, okay, there is something to this. All those, like, the
Yeah.
fogs that you navigated through, there is a purpose to it. And it
Yeah.
brought me to this point. I mean, I previously worked with Jen 2 companies ago, and that's how she I was in her head. She was like, "Hey, we need someone like you at our company." I'm like, "I am there. I am there." And this, like, I trust her. I believe in her. She's so inspirational. You need to meet her. You should come down to Santa Cruz.
Yes, I will be coming
Um,
to Santa Cruz.
please, and meet her. Like you would just see it. It's kind of like our conversations, how we speak, and like it's awestruck. Like I'm awestruck with her whenever I see her on our team meetings, and she does it with joy. Like there's just this genuine, authentic mission to feed people something really good that tastes yummy and it's good for you. And mac and cheese is actually just one of the starting things that we have. We hope we're going to be a generational company. I will say it on this podcast for the first time.
Yes,
We are a generational company when it comes to the noodle industry, and you'll find us in many other aisles soon.
I love it.
Um,
I love it.
I know it. I just feel it, and I know what we're working on. So
I love it. Well,
I'm
I just
excited about it.
that's so exciting because I just felt the energy, and that's what it's about. It's like the success, like we wait for this one big success to blow up, but it's, I've learned like it's not overnight. It's all of those, little things that come to then flourish. And so with that said, like what would you say to someone who's, kind of either in, in their career or as an entrepreneur, that they're putting all this effort in and they feel like it's just not moving fast enough for them? What would you say to them?
Wow, very very similar to kind of how I approach things in the sense of keep at it, keep with your mission, realize what your values are, know kind of what the goal is, and if you're not moving towards that, something you got to be able to let go of your ego,
Mhm.
know that maybe that's not the direction that it's supposed to take, and the path will actually evolve, right? It will come to fruition in front of you, and similar to kind of what we had said before, where it's like don't take a step forward if you're hesitant. Like don't if you're not sure, it's okay to just stay here right now, take a breath, assess, and see what kind of moves in front of you, and you'll follow it and it will follow you.
Mm.
It's kind of a symbiosis where um, the universe will find its way to you as you find your way to it.
Oh, I love that. That's true. Because we always like want to do something, and sometimes the best thing to do is do nothing, and then
Right.
it'll come and you'll be guided.
And doing nothing is okay. Staying, you need movement. You just don't want to stay
Yeah.
there. But doing nothing at the moment is
Yeah.
okay.
So in
Yeah.
that moment when you're not sure what to do, it's best to just stay present and the answers will come.
Stay mindful and then pay attention to the surrounding, the changes around you.
Mm.
And those little things, you'll begin to recognize them a lot easier.
Yes.
And you'll be a lot more comfortable in not in knowing that there is something ahead. You don't know what it is, but on the other side of this fog, it's going to be the sunshine destination that you were hoping for or meant for.
Yes, amen. Which,
Yeah,
I mean, this is for a whole other podcast, but you just covered surrender, allow, trust,
yeah.
detach.
It's the prayer.
Yeah.
It totally is. And in some ways, yeah, it kind of boils down to just those things, that just the simple things, the little things.
The simple things. And
Yeah,
that's what it comes down to. I think we make it a lot more complicated than it is.
we do. We
I
do.
can stay here with you all day, Mr. Ed
Uh,
Foster.
I totally could. Grace, we could talk forever.
Yes, yes. I appreciate you joining me so much today. And if someone's interested in learning more about Goodle, where can they find them? Find you, find Goodle. Let us know.
Definitely. So goodles.com, Goodles.com is where you can find all our fabulous products. More than just mac and cheese, we actually have merch like necklaces, mac rings, sweatshirts, all kinds of stuff. Along with the healthy mac, that's where they can find us.
I love
All our socials too. All Goodles is our handle for all our socials: Instagram, TikTok, I think, Snapchat, and Twitter. So
And we'll also put all that information at the end of the podcast. But as always, if anyone has any questions, let us know. I am so grateful for you to join us here today, because I know there are so many other places you can be. And I'm thankful for you today. And always, if you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to share and always reach out with questions. Until next time, I wish you a really amazing and blessed day ahead. And Ed, hang on with me for a second. Bye, all. My pleasure.
Bye.
Hey, love, thank you so much for listening today. I am so grateful for you. I'd like to show you my appreciation by gifting you a free forgiveness self-hypnosis audio download. Part of living the fun and fabulous life is practicing forgiveness. Forgiveness can be such a long and challenging process. My intention is that this forgiveness audio will help you in practicing forgiveness, especially with yourself. Grab it by visiting daretoachieve.com/forgiveness. For more inspiring tips, make sure to connect with me on social media. Drop me a line on Facebook or Instagram at Grace Redman Dare to Achieve. Until next time, keep moving forward towards living your fabulous life.